My parents spent thousands on my sister's baby shower, but told me they already did enough when I asked for help with diapers. My mom laughed. Maybe you should have married rich like her. I smiled. The next day, they got a package that made my mom drop her wine glass. My name is Laura, and I have a younger sister named Veronica. My parents are very well off, and they showered Veronica with endless support throughout her life, especially after she married Derek, a guy from an old money family. They're constantly giving her things, and it's pretty obvious that they favor her over me. Things have been rough for me lately. I'm married to Adam, we have a young son, Lucas, and we're struggling financially. I finally reached out to my parents for some help with diapers and baby stuff, and their response was basically that they had already done enough for me. The next day, I got a surprise package from Veronica, and well, let's just say it left my mom speechless. It all started on a regular Thursday morning, right around the time my son, Lucas, was due for his first nap. He was in one of his moods, crying because his favorite blanket had gone missing, or maybe because I'd asked him to eat vegetables for breakfast. Either way, I was already feeling worn out. My part-time job at the local coffee shop barely covered the bills, and Adam, my husband, was working construction and barely getting any time off. It seemed like everything was falling on me. The bills, the groceries, the constant need for things for Lucas, it was overwhelming. Veronica had just had her baby shower the weekend before. I wasn't there, of course. She invited me, but after everything, I couldn't bring myself to go. The party was over the top, an expensive venue, designer baby clothes, a custom cake that probably cost more than I made in a month. It was the kind of event you see in magazines. I knew it would only make me feel worse about the state of my own life, but I couldn't deny the reality of it all. I needed help. One evening, after Lucas finally fell asleep, I called my mom. I hesitated at first because I knew what I was about to ask wouldn't be easy, but I also knew I had no other option. I had never been good at asking for help, especially from my parents. They'd always made it clear that they disapproved of Adam. He wasn't good enough for me, and they weren't exactly thrilled about the financial struggles we were facing. But it was different now. I wasn't asking for a loan or anything crazy. I just needed diapers. "Hey, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "I know things are tight, but I was wondering if you could help out with a few diapers for Lucas. We're really running low." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and I could hear my mom rustling around in the background. "Laura, I don't know. We've already done enough," she finally replied, her voice sounding tired. "We put so much into Veronica's baby shower, and we can't keep doing this." I blinked in confusion, even though I shouldn't have been surprised. It wasn't the first time they'd mentioned that they had done enough. But it stung all the same. "I'm not asking for much, just a little help. We're really struggling here," I said, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. She sighed. "Well, maybe you should have married someone rich like Veronica did. Derek takes care of everything for her. We can't keep bailing you out, Laura." That was it. It felt like a punch in the gut, hearing her say that. She didn't understand. She never had. Adam and I had never asked for help. We had always tried to manage on our own, even if it meant we went without sometimes. But now, when I finally reached out, it wasn't enough. I wasn't Veronica. "Okay, Mom," I said quietly, feeling my heart sink. "I'll figure it out." I hung up, and the tears I had been holding back finally came. I didn't want to cry in front of Lucas, so I wiped my face quickly and turned to my phone. I didn't know what I expected, but after a moment of hesitation, I opened the Messages app and sent a text to Veronica. It wasn't a long message, just a simple request. "Hey, I don't want to ask, but do you have any diapers or baby stuff you're not using? We're really struggling here and could use some help." I didn't think she'd respond. Veronica had always been distant in her own way, more interested in her perfect life than in anything that wasn't about her. But to my surprise, within minutes, she replied, "Of course, I'll send you a package tomorrow. Don't worry about it." I was shocked. Veronica, the woman who seemed to have everything, was actually willing to help me. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was exactly what I needed. The next morning, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anything, so I was curious when I opened the door and saw a large package sitting on the porch. There was no return address, but the label looked expensive, the kind of packaging you see for high-end delivery services. It wasn't until I picked it up that I saw the name on the return label. It was from Veronica. I opened it slowly, unsure of what to expect. Inside, there was a large stack of diapers, more than I could have hoped for, and several bags of wipes. There were also some baby clothes, all brand new, in various sizes. Even a few luxury items like a high-end baby monitor and an expensive nursing pillow. I felt a rush of gratitude, but also a twinge of guilt. Veronica had a life I couldn't even imagine. She was married to Derek, who had bought her a beautiful home in the suburbs. They lived in a world where money wasn't an issue, while I was just trying to make sure we had enough to get through the month. I took a deep breath, setting the package on the kitchen table when Adam walked in. He raised an eyebrow when he saw all the baby supplies laid out. "Where did all this come from?" he asked, clearly surprised. "Veronica sent it," I said quietly. Adam's expression softened. He didn't say anything, but I could see the relief in his eyes. Maybe this would give us a little breathing room. For once, we wouldn't have to worry about diapers. That afternoon, I received a call from my mom. It wasn't unexpected, but I was still anxious about it. "Laura," she said, sounding more serious than I expected. "What's this I hear about Veronica sending you a package? I can't believe you went to her for help instead of asking us." "I did ask you, Mom," I replied, feeling my frustration rising. "You said you'd already done enough. You told me you couldn't keep bailing me out." There was a long silence. I knew this wasn't going to go the way I wanted, but I had to say it. "I didn't think you'd ask Veronica. She is everything, Laura," my mom finally said, her voice barely audible. "I didn't think you'd want to rely on her." "Well, I had no choice," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Maybe we all need to start being honest with each other." The days that followed were awkward. My parents didn't reach out again for a while, but I could feel the tension between us. They were disappointed in me, and I could tell they felt like I'd betrayed them by turning to Veronica for help. But it didn't stop there. A few days later, I was sitting in the living room when I saw my mom and dad's car pull up to the driveway. They got out, both looking uneasy, and walked toward the front door. I could tell they were uncomfortable, like they weren't sure how to address what had happened. My mom walked up to the porch, still holding her wine glass from dinner. When she saw the card from Veronica that I had left on the table, her face went pale. She stared at it for a long time, the glass slipping from her hand and shattering on the porch floor. I froze, unsure of what to say or do. She finally whispered, "I never thought Veronica would be the one to help you." I looked at her, not with anger, but with a quiet understanding. Maybe we all need to stop pretending everything's perfect. Veronica's life may look perfect, but she's not the only one who can help. I needed something, and she was there for me when you weren't. My dad stood beside my mom, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then my mom sighed deeply. "Maybe you're right," she said softly. "Maybe we've been too focused on what we think should be." After that uncomfortable moment on the porch, my parents didn't stay for long. They mumbled something about needing to get home, and I nodded, not wanting to prolong the awkwardness. I watched them drive away, both of them quiet, lost in their thoughts. It was strange. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the usual resentment toward them. Instead, it felt like there was a fragile thread of understanding between us, one that hadn't existed before. The next few days were quieter than usual. I didn't hear from my mom. I wasn't sure if she was processing what had happened or if she was just too embarrassed to call. But Veronica, well, she kept checking in. Her messages were brief, almost like she was trying not to overstep, but I could tell she wanted to make sure I was okay. "How's everything going?" she texted one afternoon. I stared at the message for a while. Part of me wanted to tell her to stop acting like she was the one who saved me. The reality was she had. I hated the feeling that I owed her, but I didn't have the luxury of pride right now. I had a son to take care of, and pride didn't fill his stomach or keep him dry. "Better," I replied, unsure of what to say. "I'm managing, thanks to you." Her response came quickly. "Don't mention it. That's what family is for, right?" That comment hung in the air for days. Was that really what family was for? Was family supposed to be about just showing up when everything looked perfect? Or was it about stepping in during the messy parts, too? I was starting to realize how much of family dynamics had been shaped by expectations I didn't know how to navigate. That weekend, I went to the local store to pick up some groceries, using the gift cards I'd received as birthday presents last month. I didn't like using them, but sometimes it felt necessary. As I was walking out, balancing a few bags in my arms, I noticed my mom's car parked near the store entrance. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't expected to see her here, not after the last conversation we had. I hesitated. Should I approach her, or should I just pretend I didn't see her? I took a deep breath and decided to walk up. "Mom," I said, trying to sound casual as I made my way toward her. "What are you doing here?" She turned, startled, and then gave me a sheepish smile. "I needed a few things," she said, but her voice lacked the usual confidence. I could tell she was avoiding eye contact. We stood there for a moment in silence, the distance between us palpable. I wasn't sure what she expected me to say. Maybe she was hoping I would say something that would make everything go back to how it used to be. I didn't know how to fix things with her. I had spent years trying to live up to her expectations, trying to be the daughter she wanted me to be. But every time I felt like I was getting close, she pulled away. Now I didn't know if I was supposed to act like everything was fine or if we could finally have a real conversation. I decided to break the silence. "Are you okay?" I asked. It felt like the most basic question, but I needed to know if she was truly okay. After everything that had happened, I realized I hadn't asked her that in a long time. Her eyes softened, and she sighed deeply. "I don't know," she admitted. "I feel like I've failed you, Laura." I blinked, taken aback by her words. This was the last thing I expected to hear from her. "What do you mean?" She hesitated before speaking again, and when she did, it felt like the weight of years of unspoken thoughts was finally spilling out. "I've always thought you could handle things on your own," she said. "But maybe I was wrong. Maybe I've been too focused on Veronica, thinking she needed more of my help because of the lifestyle she has. And I didn't even realize that you were struggling too. I'm sorry." I stared at her for a moment, unsure of how to respond. She wasn't asking for forgiveness, not yet anyway, but it was a start. It was the first time in years that my mom was acknowledging that maybe, just maybe, she had been part of the problem. "I know you've always had high expectations for me," I said quietly. "But I'm not Veronica, Mom. I'm not perfect, I don't have everything handed to me, and I don't want to pretend that I do." She nodded, her eyes downcast. "I know," she whispered, "and I'm sorry. I've treated you like you didn't need help, like you didn't need anything from us. But I can see now that I was wrong." There was a long pause. I didn't know what to say to that. I wasn't ready to forgive her completely, but I could feel the tension between us easing, just a little bit. "You're still my daughter, Laura," she said after a while, her voice more steady. "And I don't want to keep making you feel like you have to do everything alone. I'll help. I'll try to do better." I nodded, even though I wasn't entirely sure what better looked like. Maybe it was just the fact that she was acknowledging things for the first time. Maybe that was enough. The next few days felt strange. It was like the air between us had shifted, and while it wasn't perfect, it was different. I didn't hear from my mom as much as I thought I would, but I did start noticing small things. She would call to check in on Lucas, asking about his day or if he needed anything. It was nothing grand, but it was something. Veronica, on the other hand, didn't stop sending care packages. A new one arrived almost every week, filled with baby clothes, diapers, even baby food. At first, I was too proud to accept them all, but I quickly realized that I didn't have much of a choice. I wasn't asking for luxury items or designer anything, but the reality was, these things, diapers, wipes, were expensive, and they were hard to come by on my own. One afternoon, when the latest box from Veronica arrived, Adam and I sat down to open it together. I felt guilty looking at all the things that had been sent, but I didn't have the strength to feel pride anymore. I had a family to care for. I had Lucas to think about. Adam looked at me as we sifted through the contents. "She's really going all out, huh?" "Yeah," I said, feeling a twinge of guilt. "I didn't ask for this." "I know," he said quietly. "But maybe we need to stop worrying about where the help is coming from and just accept it when it's given." I nodded, the weight of his words settling in. Maybe he was right. Maybe we were both so focused on what we didn't have that we weren't seeing what we were being given. Veronica, despite everything, had stepped in when I needed help the most. And that had to count for something. The weeks passed in a strange quiet. My mom did start calling more often. Nothing major, just small, casual check-ins about Lucas or the weather. It felt like the beginning of something new, but I wasn't sure how much I could trust it yet. There had been so many years of disappointment that I couldn't simply forget about all the things that had been left unsaid, all the times I'd been made to feel less than. But I also knew that maybe it was time to let go of the anger. Maybe we could rebuild, one awkward conversation at a time. Still, things with Veronica were complicated. She kept sending those packages. They were thoughtful, even though I didn't want to accept them. Each one was filled with items I knew Lucas needed, and as much as I tried to turn my pride into a shield, it was hard to say no to something that was actually helping my child. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Veronica was doing this less out of a sense of sisterly love and more out of a need to prove something. I wasn't naive enough to ignore that she was still the golden child in my parents' eyes. She'd always been. Her life, perfect and polished, seemed to be the thing they compared mine to, and I was always falling short. But Veronica didn't understand the struggle. She'd never lived it the way I had. One evening, while I was sorting through one of her latest packages, Lucas was playing with his toys in the living room. Adam was in the kitchen, trying to figure out dinner. The quiet in the house was familiar, almost peaceful, when suddenly the doorbell rang. It was late, so I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door to find a delivery man standing with yet another large box. As soon as I saw the label, I knew it was from Veronica. My stomach tightened. I accepted the package, carrying it inside with a resigned sigh. It had become so routine, these random deliveries from Veronica, sending me things I didn't ask for, things I didn't feel comfortable receiving. But what really set me off was the card that came with it. As I opened it, I saw her elegant handwriting. Just thought Lucas might need some new things. I know you're not as lucky as I am, but I'm here for you. Hope this helps. Love, Veronica. I put the card down and clenched my fists, fighting back a surge of emotion. I had never asked for her pity. Never. That's when it hit me. Veronica was still trying to control the narrative. She was still trying to play the role of the benevolent sister who rescued me from my financial struggles, the sister who had everything. It wasn't enough for her to be successful. She had to make sure I knew I was inferior. I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't call her. I didn't send her a message. Instead, I went to the one person who might understand. I called my mom. The phone rang 3 times before she picked up. Laura, her voice sounded tired, but there was a trace of something else in it, maybe guilt, maybe concern. Maybe it was just the hope that she could somehow make things right. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I need to talk to you about something. There was a pause before she responded. Of course, sweetheart, what's going on? I took a deep breath, my mind racing. It's about Veronica. My mom's voice went quiet. What about her? I'm tired of being her charity case, I said, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. She keeps sending me things, expensive things, like she's some kind of hero. I didn't ask for any of it. I never wanted to be the person she rescues. There was a long silence, and for a moment I thought she had hung up on me. But then I heard her speak again. I didn't realize she was doing that, Laura. I thought she was just trying to help. Help, I repeated, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. She's not helping, Mom. She's just rubbing her success in my face. And you know what? I'm done with it. My mom didn't respond immediately. Then she said something that shocked me. I don't think Veronica knows what she's doing, she said, almost softly. She's always been the one to get everything, and I think she doesn't realize what she's doing to you. She's never had to struggle. She doesn't understand what it's like to feel. Not enough. But I see it now. I see how it's been. That simple acknowledgement from my mom hit me like a wave. For the first time, she was seeing it. She was recognizing the divide that had always existed between me and Veronica. And I wasn't the one creating it anymore. It wasn't me being too sensitive or jealous. It was the difference between a life of privilege and a life of constant survival. I'm sorry, Laura, my mom said, her voice cracking slightly. I should have been more aware of how she treated you. I never meant for this to happen. I'm so sorry. I know you didn't, Mom, I said, feeling the knot in my chest start to loosen. But it's time we put a stop to it. I need to feel like I'm not just the one left behind. The next day, I took the first step. Veronica's usual package arrived that morning, and for the first time, I didn't open it. Instead, I went to my computer, typed up a message, and sent it. Veronica, I appreciate that you've been sending me things for Lucas, but I need you to understand something. I didn't ask for any of this. I don't want to be your charity case, and I don't want your pity. Please stop sending me anything else. I'm managing, and I'm proud of it. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I did something that felt almost radical. I blocked her number. I didn't want to hear from her again. I didn't want to feel like I owed her something, even if it was in the form of expensive baby clothes or a fancy nursing pillow. It was over. I had finally done what I should have done years ago, taken control of the narrative. And I knew that, even though it was difficult, it was the right thing to do. Veronica would never be able to hold that over my head again. A few days passed, and I didn't hear from Veronica. I wasn't sure if she was hurt or confused, but I didn't care. What mattered was that I was reclaiming my life. Then the phone call came, this time from my mom. I just spoke to Veronica, she said, and I could tell from her voice that something had shifted. She's upset. She didn't understand why you felt that way, but I told her something. I told her that you're not the person she gets to rescue, Laura, that you're your own person, and she needs to respect that. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in a long while, my mom wasn't protecting Veronica or making excuses for her behavior. She was acknowledging the truth. I'm proud of you, my mom said, her voice soft. I'm proud of how strong you are, and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. It wasn't perfect. Things weren't magically healed, and I wasn't sure how long it would take for things to truly change. But I felt something I hadn't felt in years: hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something better. As for Veronica, she never sent another package. She didn't reach out again, and honestly, I didn't care. I was no longer her project to fix. I was no longer her competition.